Welcome to the first session of this Advent's York course. It's asking a great question. Who am I? It's a question that underlies everyone's thinking about what it is to be a human being. Who am I? Why do I matter? So we're going to be talking about that this morning. And I wonder if I could first of all go to you, Nick. Who are you?
There's so many different ways of answering that question, Nick. But my go-to place would be to define myself according to the relationships I have with different people. So I'm Kate's husband. I'm Johnny and Ellen's dad.
Right. And you could add much more to that as well. How about you, Chine?
Yes, similarly, I am a mother and a wife. I'm also a Londoner, but also come from somewhere else, which is Nigeria. And in Nigeria, when you ask who you are, you talk about where you come from, who your people are. So I'm Igbo, I'm from the southeast of Nigeria, but I'm also a Londoner.
So, I mean, what we've uncovered already is that we have multiple identities, and in one sense, we layer them. So the question, "Who am I?" is not as simple as it sounds right at the outset. And let's move it on to what is it that gets you up in the morning? What are you living for, or do you just exist?
So I'm in a really lucky position to do a job that feels to me like it is also my calling. I have a sense of vocation, which is to communicate the good news of the Christian faith to a world that doesn't understand it. So every day I get to do that through my job as being director of Theos, which is a religion and society think tank. And yeah, I'm lucky in that both of those things align. My kind of sense of purpose and
Hmm.
mission also aligns with the thing that I get paid for to get
Hmm.
up for every morning. But before I go to work, I am a mother. Have got to get things ready. I'm living for. Often it feels like the school timetable
Hmm.
and what I need to pack in my children's bags or what I need to do for nursery. So I'm living for the people around me and my family, but also the sense of calling that I have.
Do you ever get lost while meeting the needs of everyone else? Because a lot of mothers do say this, you get a few years in and then you think, well, who am I?
That is that is a really yes, I do because I think a lot of what I do is for them and it's for my husband. And those are the first things I think about when I wake up. It is how am I going to serve them in effect? How am I going to make sure that they're okay? But also my kind of sense of wider family because it's not just my immediate family that are the thing I'm embedded in, but my kind of wider global network of family. So, it's my cousin's wedding in Nigeria soon. I've been sent a list about the things I need to buy for her. I need to check in on my grandmother, check in on my parents. And
Yeah.
then there's also my team of people that I work with every day, as well as my kind of friends who are also going through some really difficult things at the moment. So
Yeah.
there are lots of kind of people that I'm concerned about. And there isn't enough time in the day to also sometimes think about myself.
Yeah.
But that's fine for me.
It's complex, isn't it? And actually dealing with difficult things is the norm, not the aberration in human life. What about you, Nick? What do you live for?
But the strange thing is that I'm at the kind of slightly the other end of the family spectrum, Chinese. So my wife and I are empty nesters. I mean, temporarily the kids come back, they're at university. But actually, the same problem of questioning who you are affects you at that end of the
Mhm.
family life because I was a stay-at-home dad for some of the time when the kids were very little, and we invested a lot of time with the kids. And you do all the thing you
Mhm.
do with kids, and you know who you are. Then
Mhm.
your dad, and I was touchline dad. I mean, I've spent many hours on the touchline. I don't like sport, but when your son's playing, you're fully invested. Brilliant, really
Yeah.
good. And they go, and it's great. You want them to go off, you want them to form their own life, and so on and so forth. And then you wake up in the morning and they're not there, and you think, so who am I exactly today? Which is another way of asking, who
Yeah.
am I there to live for? Now, of course, there are lots and lots of answers to that, but the one that's been dominant in your life for many years is no longer quite so dominant. And that requires a bit of a cognitive shift.
Uh-huh. I'd have answered it quite differently, actually, the question, because um, if I can make a statement, I think the beginning of freedom as a human being, of knowing who you are, is to recognize your mortality. that I am someone who will die. The day after we record this, I'm having heart surgery. I've already had brain surgery, and you come to terms with the fact that you're a mortal human being. And that's the beginning of freedom. And particularly for Christians who start further down the line, as if God is there to make my life comfortable, then that can be a problem. But in fact, who am I? I'm a mortal human being made in the image of God, and the rest is detail. But when you're about to go under the anaesthetic, that's what you hold on to, it seems to me. But the world we're living in is quite complicated. It's threatening. The 21st century is not continuing with the optimism with which it began. And we see conflict in a lot of places as well. We've got the threat of climate change. And in the midst of all of that, there is this question, what does it mean to be a human? I wonder how, in that context, how would you begin to answer that or address it?
Well, given where we started, that there are lots of different ways of answering that question, I think you would begin to think about where you are when you're answering it. So you talked about your mortality then. We are recording this a few days after the election of Pope Leo XIV.
Mhm.
He interestingly remarked a few days after his election that he chose the name Leo XIV in homage to Leo XIII,
Yeah.
who was Pope at the end of the 19th century at the period of really significant industrial upheaval. He chose Leo XIV because he said he's living in a similar time of industrial upheaval where AI
Yeah.
threatens to change, improve, challenge so much of what we do. And this presents itself as a challenge not only to what we do, but who we are.
Mhm.
Because if you have AI that is able to process information vastly faster than we are able to, and if we're moving towards what's known as AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is machines being able to do stuff,
Yeah.
that physical stuff that
Yeah.
they kind of determine as opposed to stuff that we give them to do, it forced them on the question, well, how are they different from us?
Mhm.
And what makes us special? And having written a bit about this, I think the answer to that comes a lot down to what you were talking about there, our mortality or our fallibility or vulnerability, our embodiedness and our embeddedness, and all these qualities, the fact that we are creatures that, as it were, grasp for eternity, but are nonetheless very much bounded by mortality. I think that is a critical thing to get into our heads at a time in an age in which the question of who are we in the light of technology is going to keep on coming up.
We'll come back to that in a moment. But Chine, I mean, how do you respond to that? Especially the rise of AI, of technology, where in the past there's always been human agency. At the end of the day, there's human agency. And the fear now, it seems quite widespread, that that becomes removed when you have machines that can think for themselves. So what's the difference?
Yeah, I think about the two things being linked in terms of kind of mortality and AI and the kind of technological advancements. And I think about the billionaires who are on these quests for eternal life or immortality. So these very very rich men often who get up at 4 a.m. who eat three mouthfuls of food a day, who are constantly being tested to make sure that their bodies are at their kind of optimum level so that they can live forever, apparently. And I think that there is something about the body, the human body, as distinct from an AI or a robot or a thing, that makes me realize that what's different from me and the kind of technology as it stands now is that actually bodies are also important. We are not just minds. We're not just things that can think quickly, can kind of do maths very quickly. We are also bodies, and our bodies are located in places and in families and in times and cultures.
Yeah.
So I think the body is also an important part of who we are as human beings.
Which is at the heart of the Christian faith, because at Christmas, God opts into the world, the material world, and Christianity is a material faith. It does wind me up sometimes when people talk about spirituality as if it was a separated thing, when we have to be earthed. That's what incarnation is all about.
I think for me, the closest I have felt to my own mortality is in the labour ward giving birth twice. The it is the time in which I have felt most like a body. And the early years of parenting, for
Mm.
me, have been very embodied experiences too. Complete and utter devotion, touch, love, care for another human being's body. And I think what I've learned through that very bodily experience, is also something very spiritual, which is about love, what love is, the love of God towards us, and how we can show love towards other human beings as well.
Just to kind of chip in there as well, I
Yeah,
think that
sure.
one other critical aspect of being human is being creative. The image of God, we've already mentioned in Genesis 1, which is a phrase that has been analysed to death
Mhm.
by theology over the years. One of the familiar interpretations for it is that we're made in the image of a creative God, because you get
Yeah.
this phrase after God's is doing a lot of creating. And that invites the question, what is creativity? Now, you're probably familiar with Nick Cave,
Mm.
famous singer, songwriter, who's been in this space a lot. And very interestingly, recently, he has his website called the Red Letter Diaries, I think
Yeah.
Red Hand Diaries, isn't it? A fan in New Zealand sent him the lyrics of a song that he'd asked Chat GPT to write in the style of Nick Cave. And Nick Cave responded in quite a robust way that I probably won't repeat in our discussion here. But he basically said it was complete nonsense. Why was it nonsense? Because it was a burlesque.
Mm.
Creativity, he says, is an attempt to achieve transcendence. But Chat GPT can't transcend anything because it hasn't been anywhere. It hasn't done
Mhm.
anything. It hasn't suffered any limits.
Mm.
And Nick Cave, who's famously lost two sons and,
Mm.
borne unbelievable grief,
Yeah.
talking about the grief and the finitude and the vulnerability and the contingency of human life is critical to what it is, but also our simultaneous desire to grasp the beyond,
Mhm.
of being aware of what we would clumsily call eternity.
Mhm.
That is a deeply creative aspect of our character, but you have to be embodied and embedded and contingent and fragile in order to achieve it in the first place. So you get this
Yeah.
brilliant tension between our vulnerability and our fragility and our transcendence as humans.
It takes me back to that other question, it's framed slightly differently in Genesis chapter 3, actually, where Adam and Eve do the naughty stuff. And then their instinct is not to go and find God, find the transcendent, find the eternal. Their instinct is to hide. And it's God who takes the initiative and comes walking in the garden in the cool of the day, it says, and then asks this question, Adam, where are you? Immortal human being, where are you? And the where are you, it seems to me, is a very good accompaniment to the who are you. You don't know who you are until you know where you are, and where you are is embodied.
Mm.
So there's a lot here in when we ask a simple question, who am I? We can use our identifiers. I'm from Liverpool, I'm a husband, I'm a grandfather, all of that sort of stuff we talked about. But we go deeper and deeper, and we find out that we are embodied children of God. We hope you've enjoyed that first session, that first conversation. We look forward to seeing you in session 2. And the theme then is, what does the Bible say about this sort of stuff?